I carried 3 plants toward the trash can last month. Plants I'd grown for years. I'd already given up on them. Then I picked this up. 1 week later, all 3 were growing again. Real new growth. Not overnight, not magic. But that wasn't the surprising part. The surprising part was what I found when I figured out why it actually worked. The real problem was never what I thought it was. And here's the thing, almost every gardener makes this exact mistake without knowing it. You've probably made it too, on a plant sitting in your house right now. Once you see what I'm about to show you, you'll never look at a struggling plant the same way again. You'll stop guessing. You'll start diagnosing. Here's the mistake. A plant looks sick. We reach for fertilizer, pour it on, hope for the best, walk into any garden store, shelves of $20, $30 bottles, all promising the same thing, none of them asking the one question that actually matters. Why is this plant struggling? Here's the weird part. Struggling isn't one problem. It's 3, and they all look almost identical from the outside. Some plants are starving, simply out of what the soil used to give them. Some are recovering from heat, from drought, from a rough repotting they haven't bounced back from. And some can't use what's already there. The nutrients are sitting right in the soil. But something underneath is broken down. Same droopy leaves. Same disappointing growth. Completely different causes. This is where everything changes though. Once you know which one you're looking at, the fix becomes almost obvious. And there's a real cost to guessing wrong. Buy the wrong product. Wait 2 weeks. Nothing happens. Buy a different one. Wait again. That's $40, $60 gone. And the plant got worse the whole time you were guessing. So let's start with the one I ran into first. It's the plant I almost lost before I understood any of this. That plant, down to a couple of leaves. Soil gone gray instead of rich and dark. That's exactly where this starts. Number 1, worm castings. For a starving plant, a pothos. Or a peace lily. Or honestly, any houseplant that stopped putting out new growth. Older leaves fading first. Soil looking tired. You've watered it, maybe fed it, nothing's changed. I honestly thought this one was finished. That's usually not a needs more food problem, that's a soil problem. And most people never notice the difference. Because from the outside, a hungry plant and a stressed plant and a plant with dead soil all just look tired. On the surface, the soil still looks perfectly normal. Underneath, the entire workforce has disappeared. Here's something I didn't know for years. The fix here is worm castings. The good news is you don't need a specialty garden store. Almost every garden center, home improvement store, or hardware store carries worm castings. Look near the bags of potting mix and compost, not the fertilizer shelves. A bag usually costs $6 to $10 and lasts for months because you only use a little at a time. Here's something I didn't know for years. The fix here is worm castings. They look like dark coffee grounds, easy to walk past on a shelf. If you've never seen them before, don't expect a bag labeled fertilizer with a bright green label and a photo of a giant tomato on it. It looks almost boring. That's part of why so many people walk right past it without a second glance. But they don't actually feed the plant. At least, not first. They feed something else. I didn't realize this until I actually looked into it properly. That's when I realized why every fertilizer I'd tried before had barely worked. It's the microbes, the ones living in that soil. Those microbes are what actually help roots absorb nutrients in the first place. Not the castings directly. The microbes. The plant was never what needed feeding. The soil was. That's when everything clicked. And once I understood that, every failed attempt before this one suddenly made sense. All those times I'd fed a plant and watched nothing happen, I wasn't doing anything wrong technically. I was just solving a problem that didn't exist while ignoring the one that did. Here's the mistake almost everyone makes. Every watering cycle, every growing season, especially in containers, that underground workforce slowly disappears. The soil still looks like soil. It stops behaving like healthy soil. So what does that actually mean for you? That's why you've probably poured fertilizer onto a plant before, watched absolutely nothing happen, and quietly blamed yourself. It was never your fault. You fed the plant. You just never fed the thing responsible for delivering it. But here's what surprised me once I actually understood this. Fix that underground workforce, and it doesn't just help once. It changes how the plant responds to everything you do after. Water it, and the roots actually use that water. Move it to better light, and it adapts faster. One fix. Months of better results. Nobody tells you that part. There's actually a reason this works so differently from anything sold as a quick fix. Most products on a garden store shelf are built to be visible fast, because that's what sells a bottle. A dramatic color change in 3 days looks great on packaging, but fast and lasting are two different things, and almost nothing that works this slowly gets marketed well, because slow doesn't sell. Watch what happens if you actually try this. Week 1, a single new leaf. I noticed mine on day 6, small, easy to miss if you weren't looking closely, tucked near the base where I almost didn't check. Week 2, the color deepens, not dramatically, just a shade darker than it was the week before. Week 3 or 4, the stem stands straighter, less of that tired lean toward the window. If nothing's changed by week 2, something else might be going on. And that's exactly where the next 2 situations come in. How to use it. 1 cup into the top inch of soil, worked in gently so you're not disturbing the roots underneath. Or steep it overnight in water, strain it, and pour that on instead if you'd rather water it in slowly. 1 cup is plenty for a medium to large pot. More won't speed anything up, it just sits there. But here's what caught me off guard. Even this won't help if your plant has a completely different problem, which is exactly what happened next, with a different plant entirely. One that made me question everything I thought I'd just figured out. If that's the kind of channel you want more of, subscribe and tell me in the comments which plant of yours needs saving right now. If every plant looked like this, we'd be done. But they don't. Sometimes the soil isn't the problem at all. Number 2, liquid seaweed. For a stressed plant A fern. A week without water, on a trip I couldn't get out of. Leaves crisped at the edges, drooping, growth completely stalled. I almost gave up on this one too. I actually reached for worm castings first, out of habit, because it had just worked. I figured, why not use it again? Nothing happened. That confused me for days. I kept checking it every morning, expecting to see the same slow improvement I'd seen with the pothos, and there was just nothing. If anything, it looked slightly worse. Then something unexpected happened. I realized that plant wasn't starving at all. It was recovering. And those two things look almost identical from a distance, which is exactly why I got it wrong the first time, and honestly, why I think most people get it wrong too. Think about what happens after you've been sick yourself. Your body doesn't want a huge meal right away. It wants time. Plants are the same. After heat, drought, or shock, everything slows down. Roots absorb less. Whatever energy is left goes towards survival, not growth. The plant is essentially in triage mode, keeping itself alive rather than putting energy into new leaves or stronger stems. I couldn't understand why worm castings had worked so well on one plant and done nothing on this one. Here's the mistake most people make next, and I made it too. Pouring on stronger fertilizer. It doesn't help. The plant isn't refusing the food, it just isn't ready for it yet. Force feed it here, and you can actually set it back further. Because now it's spending energy trying to process something it can't use instead of spending that energy on recovery. That's where liquid seaweed earns its place. It doesn't feed the plant the way the first fix does. Not exactly. It does something else. It helps the plant cope with stress directly, almost like handing it tools instead of a meal. The compounds in it aren't nutrients in the traditional sense. They're closer to signals, telling the plant's own systems to kick back into gear. What happened next changed everything about how I think about this. Once the stress eases, everything else starts working better on its own. Roots, water movement, leaf strength. And here's the consequence nobody talks about. A plant that recovers this way, slowly, on its own timeline, tends to come back stronger than it was before. Not just recovered, more resilient, better prepared for the next heat wave, the next missed watering, the next stretch of neglect that inevitably happens to all of us eventually. A fast chemical fix can't do that. It doesn't repair anything underneath. It just masks the symptom, papering over the problem instead of solving it. I didn't expect this part either. Almost everyone makes the same mistake with this specific fix. They expect the same speed as the first one. Nothing happens in a few days. They assume it failed, and they either give up entirely or switch to something stronger, which usually makes things worse, not better. But recovery comes before growth. Always in that order. Rush it, and you just waste product. Or worse, undo whatever progress the plant had already quietly started making. Where to find it? Same garden centers near the fertilizers. $10 to $15. Lasts a long time. Since you only need a few drops per application, a single bottle can genuinely outlast an entire growing season. How to use it? A few drops in a spray bottle of water, following whatever ratio is listed on the bottle since concentrations vary between brands. Mist it on the leaves once a week, not poured into the soil. This one works through the leaves themselves. Be patient. This isn't a 48-hour fix. 2 weeks later, I couldn't believe it was the same fern. That's when I realized I'd been fixing the wrong thing all along, at least at first, and why the mistake I made with it actually taught me more than getting it right the first time would have. Quick check. Most gardeners never notice this next part. Plant's just weak, no new growth. First fix. Been through something rough. Heat, drought, a move. Second fix. But there's one more situation. And it fools almost everyone because it looks nothing like either of these. Here's what that looks like. And there's a decent chance you've already seen it without realizing what it meant. Number 3 fish emulsion. For a nutrient-deficient plant, you've probably seen this on tomatoes, even if you've never grown one. Leaves losing color fast. Not brown, not wilted, just yellow. Even with good watering. Even with good light. That's almost always nitrogen deficiency. It's about the clearest signal a plant can give you if you know what you're actually looking at. Because on its own, yellowing can look like a dozen different problems at once. Here's why. Nitrogen is what makes chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is what makes leaves green. Without enough, the green fades. Pale first, then yellow. It usually starts on the older, lower leaves first too, which is a small detail that helps you tell it apart from other issues. At this point, I thought I had the whole system figured out. I didn't. The fix here is fish emulsion, and it works incredibly fast. That's actually the problem, because the thing that makes it so effective is the exact reason it fails on so many struggling plants. It delivers nitrogen the roots can use almost immediately. No microbes required to break it down first, the way the first fix needs. That's why color comes back in days, not weeks. There's no waiting on an underground workforce to slowly process anything. It's simply available the moment the roots touch it. But here's what I didn't expect. The same thing that makes it fast is exactly what makes it wrong for the other two problems. It's not rebuilding soil the way the first fix does. It's not helping a plant recover from stress the way the second one does. Use it on a starving plant and you'll get a quick flash of green. It fades right back within weeks. You never fixed what was actually wrong. I made this exact mistake early on, poured it onto a struggling plant that wasn't actually deficient at all, watched it green up beautifully for about 10 days, and then watched it slide right back to where it started, and spent weeks genuinely confused about why the color kept coming back. That's the consequence most people never see coming. The wrong fix here doesn't just fail. It can hide a bigger problem long enough for it to get worse, because you're staring at healthy-looking green leaves while the actual issue underneath keeps going untreated. Where to find it? Garden centers, hardware stores, even big box aisles. $8 to $12. Lasts a season. How to use it. 1 tablespoon per gallon of water. Every 2 weeks. Morning or evening, never midday sun, since the combination of fresh application and direct heat can stress the leaves. Strong smell for about a day, so use it outdoors if you can, or time it right before you're already heading out anyway. A few things before you try any of this, because getting the timing wrong matters more than people expect. Worm castings. The risk isn't damage, it's impatience. Give it 2 to 3 weeks. Underneath the soil, it's already working, even when nothing looks different yet on the surface. Liquid seaweed. Don't overmist. Once a week is enough. More can leave a residue on the leaves that actually blocks light instead of helping, which slows things down rather than speeding them up. Fish emulsion. Stick to the 2-week window. The same speed that makes it useful also makes it easy to overdo, and overuse shows up as leaf burn along the edges within days. And one rule across all 3. Never feed a plant that's bone dry. Water first. Wait a few hours. Then apply. A starved, dehydrated plant can't absorb the extra, and feeding it too soon can shock it further instead of helping it recover. I want to be honest about what none of these fix. None of them save a plant dying from overwatering. If the roots are sitting in soggy soil, you have to fix the drainage first. Feed roots that are drowning, and you just make things worse. Same with lighting. Wrong spot is the wrong spot. No amount of feeding undoes that. Here's the thing I always tell people now. Fertilizer should be one of the last questions, not the first. Ask about watering first. Ask about light. Ask about the roots. Only once those are right does feeding even start to matter. Watering and light mistakes kill more plants than a lack of fertilizer ever does. That's exactly what I'm covering next. So here's what I want you to walk away with. Don't ask which fertilizer to buy first. Ask what your plant is actually telling you. Soil gone tired and gray, worm castings. Recently stressed, heat or drought or a move, liquid seaweed. Leaves turning pale or yellow, fish emulsion. 3 problems, 3 fixes. Once you can tell them apart, you're not guessing anymore. You're diagnosing. Next time, the mistake I think kills more plants than fertilizer ever could. Watering, not because people water too little, because most of us water at the wrong time, in the wrong way, without ever knowing it. If you don't want to miss that, subscribe now. And tell me in the comments, which plant of yours needs saving right now? Chances are, a few of you are dealing with exactly what I was standing in my backyard with last month.